You ever find yourself on a flight thinking it'll just be another routine trip, just you, your seat, maybe a quick drink, a little time to zone out in, then out of nowhere, you walk into a showdown that turns an ordinary cabin into a stage for something a whole lot bigger than you ever planned? Yeah, that happened to me. I was Olivia Bennett, CEO of Sky Venture Airlines, but that day I was just a passenger in first class, hoping to finish my work before a big appointment. I stepped into the cabin, set down my carry-on, and felt all eyes turn not because anyone knew who I was, but because of the man who decided both seats next to me were his kingdom. He had this way of spreading out a blanket, his briefcase, his attitude as if the rest of us were just part of the scenery. Before I could even take my seat, he tossed a gray blanket over 1E and 1F, blocking my spot. "I need this entire row to rest," he said, voice flat, that kind of tone that just dares you to challenge him. And when I held up my boarding pass and told him calmly, mind you that this was my seat, he barely even looked. "You're mistaken," he growled. "People like me deserve this space. You do well to find somewhere else." That's when you feel the air shift, you know? People suddenly get real quiet, but you can hear the tension, you can feel phones coming out to record, nobody ready to intervene, but everyone bracing for fireworks. Now, this wasn't just about a seat. In that moment, it was about dignity, and who gets to claim it gets to be seen, respected, left alone in peace. And I guess it never gets old for some people to test those boundaries. I told him again, steady as I could, "This is my seat." He just crossed his arms, didn't even look at the boarding pass, and said, "People like you don't belong here." And let me tell you, I've heard those words in so many ways my whole life, born and raised in Atlanta, fighting every step for a place at the table, for respect you shouldn't have to earn over and over again. But Richard Thompson, yeah, let's just call him Richard, because you know the type he'd spend his life surrounded by the kind of power that makes you think the rules don't apply to you. Chairman of a big investment firm, used to being obeyed, never having to ask twice. He hated anyone who stood their ground, especially someone who looked like me. I knew I couldn't let this go. "Mr. Thompson," I said, making sure he knew I saw right through him, "I've asked you politely to return my seat out of respect for equality. I expect you to show the same respect to everyone on this flight that I'm showing you." He laughed, and I mean loud enough for the whole cabin to hear. "Equality? I don't think you even understand the meaning of that word, Miss Bennett." I could see people shifting in their seats, some shaking their heads, a couple looking up at the ceiling as if they wished they were somewhere else. Phones were up now, and suddenly it wasn't just my problem, it was everyone's. He turned a quiet first-class cabin into a stage for his own little play about power and privilege. But what he didn't know, I wasn't just a passenger. I was the woman running this airline. And even then, I wasn't about to pull rank, not yet. The flight attendant, Emily, stepped in, gentle but firm, asking Richard to respect assigned seating. He rolled his eyes at her, said he had a medical condition, and refused to budge. Emily shot me a sympathetic glance, her hands tied, her patience wearing thin. You could feel the whole cabin waiting, the tension like a taut string. Now, here's where the story takes a turn, call it twist, call it karma. But suddenly someone from across the aisle piped up, "Wait, aren't you Olivia Bennett, CEO of Sky Venture?" Just like that, the balance shifted. All the eyes that were watching quietly snapped onto me. Even Richard's confidence cracked just a hair. But he doubled down, saying he didn't care who I was, that I wasn't going to make a move. You ever watch someone realize, maybe for the first time, that their usual tricks won't work? That's what happened. Instead of getting louder, I smiled, leaned back, and said, "Then I guess we'll wait and see." Every passenger in that cabin felt Ida subtle power shift, a moment where dignity meant standing your ground, not raising your voice. That's when I made my move quiet, invisible. I pulled out my phone, sent a quick code to my tech team, Operation Silent Wing. Within moments, the Wi-Fi in Richard's corner of the plane dropped off. His phone, usually his lifeline, went dead. No calls, no texts, no backup. You could see the confusion and panic flicker across his face, but all I did was sit quietly, hands folded, waiting. The crew gave me a nod. We all knew what was happening. Richard tried everything, fussing with his phone, glaring at me, making a show of how inconvenienced he was. But the more he raged, the smaller he seemed to everyone else. A few minutes later, unable to control himself, he jumped up and shouted, "I want off this plane right now." The whole cabin jerked in surprise, and the lead flight attendant, Kevin, blocked his way calm, professional, unmovable. "Sir, please sit down. We are under movement restriction," he said. Richard threatened lawsuits, tried the old "don't you know who I am" bit. Nobody was impressed. Then something wild happened. A middle-aged woman never saw her before, probably had a dozen stories of her own, stood up and called him out. "You're the one hogging 2 seats and being rude. You're the problem." For the first time, Richard realized he wasn't just up against me. The whole cabin was done with him. His last-ditch attempts to shift blame fell flat. The woman pressed on. "Instead of apologizing and giving Miss Bennett her rightful seat, you just got more obnoxious." Nods of agreement spread around the cabin. Richard, face drained of color, was left isolated in a way that probably felt colder than the airplane air ever could. That's when Alex Murphy, our VP of Risk Management, showed up. Not flashy, just authoritative, a man whose word was law in a crisis. He fixed Richard with a stare and said, "Return to your assigned seat immediately, or we will be forced to take stronger measures." Richard tried to resist, but in that moment, he knew he was finished. He slunk back to his assigned seat, humiliated, the entire cabin watching. After that, it was like a dam broke. People started whispering, recording, uploading within hours. Respect Olivia and Sky Venture Justice were trending. Richard's face was everywhere, held up as the poster boy for arrogance and privilege gone wrong. News outlets picked it up, business partners turned away, and the board he once ruled with an iron fist forced him out. Meanwhile, I returned to headquarters and set about changing everything: mandatory training, diversity initiatives, a council to ensure respect at every level of the company. Sky Venture became the airline people pointed to when they wanted to see real change. Richard, for all his power and connections, found himself abandoned. Law firms refused to take his case, friends vanished, his mansion echoing with regret instead of laughter. He learned, the hard way, that money and power mean nothing without respect, and that the true cost of arrogance is paid and dignity lost. I kept that old boarding pass for seat 1E on my desk, a reminder that every day is a new chance to stand up for what's right, even if it means standing alone. So let me ask, if you'd been in my shoes, would you have handled it the same way? Where do you draw the line between defending yourself and letting someone else's ignorance slide? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's get real about respect, justice, and the kind of world we all want to live in. If this story spoke to you, hit like, share it around, and subscribe so we can keep these conversations going. Thanks for listening.